everybody. I haven't actually done, like, I haven't actually done the whole sort of welcome to the convention thing, so welcome. Yeah, Exilians, old and new, and non-Exilians, and whoever's here. So yeah, so I do some. I'm going to do some storytelling. I'm probably just going to tell a couple of stories in the next 10 minutes or so. So the storytelling I do is kind of faux traditional style, but we'll just sort of see how it goes. I have various sound effects as well, which I'll demonstrate just because they're slightly funny. These are spoons, as you probably know. But yeah, they can be. They are, believe it or not, validly playable as a musical instrument, if you hold them correctly. Famously played by Doctor actor Sylvester McCoy. Incidentally, these spoons have actually been played by said Sylvester McCoy. Ooh. So it's a type. More.
He came for the spoons.
That actually made quite a good noise.
Yeah, this is a particularly interesting and unusual instrument. It's called a Jew's harp. It is neither Jewish nor a harp. It works sort of by resonating with the bar there twanging, except if you do it in air, it does nothing, and therefore you need some amplification, which is provided by your skull, like so. Some people can actually play tunes on them. I can make pointy noises, but they're good pointy noises. Right, okay. So, the story I'm going to tell is one from far distant lands, far away from these western shores on the edge of the world, from across the rolling hills of Germany and the mountains of Greece, the island of the Aegean and the rolling peaks of Cappadocia, far into the lands of the south and east, where they say the stars are strange. The story I'm going to tell is of Tamin, of whom you may or may not have heard, for tales come and go and fly around in the air, and some get lost and some remain. But Tamin, it is said, it was said to me, was a very great hero and a very wise man, and did a great many things and far too many stories to tell in about 10 minutes. But the story I'm going to tell you is the first of Tamin's stories. And it is known as the story of the road to Magalie. Tamin was a boy. He lived on a farm in the kingdom of a king known as Prester John. Many great writers of days gone by wrote of the kingdom of Prester John. Far away in the land of the south and east, the one bastion of the Christians in Asia. For this was at the time of the Crusades, and there were many myths of this kingdom, but I am assured that this story is entirely true. And Tamin initially lived his life as any boy would, until one day he had just turned 16. He had a dream, and from the dream he remembered little except this: a voice saying, "Go to Magalie, find Magalie, you must go and seek out Magalie. And so, because in those days it was considered that dreams were very portentous and that you must follow the course of what your dreams tell you, the next day he packed his bag and he set out from that little village, on towards the kingdom and the castle of Prester John, in the hope that the great king would shed some light on his dream, and that perhaps he would find where this place called Magalie was. So he went along the road. The first traveller he met was a creature known as a skyapod. I do not know if any skyapods are still alive in those regions. There are certainly none around here. A skyapod is a great giant. A giant with one leg and one enormous foot, which he used to shade himself from the sun whilst lying on his back. And skyapods, as everybody who has met a skyapod knows, are usually extremely sleepy. And the skyapod greeted Tammin, and Tammin greeted the skyapod. And Tammin said to the skyapod, "What do you know about Magalie?" And the skyapod said, sleepily, "Not much I know of Magalie, except this, that if a bird were to fly over Magalie, they would see golden spires, golden spirals, all in a sphere." And Tammin thought on this. Spire the city, possibly? He thanked the skyapod, and he walked on. And the second traveller he met was a horseman. And he said to the horseman, "Sir, what do you know of Magalie?" And the horseman said, "Only this I have been told of Magalie, that if one were to walk around Magalie, one would hear the songs of birds, voices like the dawn chorus, floating on the air." And so Tammin thought, "Oh, it's about for that." And he went on. And the third traveller he met was an automaton of the sort that they once built in those parts. A great man of steel and springs. And he said, "Man of steel, what can you tell me of Magalie?" And the man of steel and springs said, "I've only been told one thing of Magalie, and that is that if one were to stand at Magalie's foot and look up, one would see a great tall tower as if of shining marble." And so Tammin thanked him, and he walked on. And then Tammin met the fourth traveller. The fourth traveller, she stood by the side of the road, and she talked to him, talked with a quiet voice, a sing-song voice. She had hair of golden curls falling down around her shoulders, and wore a pure white satin dress. And he said to her, "What do you know of Magalie?" And she said, "I know nothing of Magalie." And so they talked for a while longer. And they talked of many things, many times and many places. But then Tammin remembered that, of course, he had to follow his dreams. He had to find Magalie. So he bid good day to her, and he walked on. Until at last he came to the castle of Prester John, at the centre of that kingdom. And he went to Prester John, and he told him of his dream. And Prester John said to him, "So you say Magalie, if you looked down from above, would be a maze of golden spirals. And Tavin said, "Oh, yes." And you say that Magalie, if you looked at it from the foot, would be a tower as if of white marble. And Tavin said, "Well, yes." And you say that if you walked around Magalie, you would hear voices like the birds and the song. And it was on the third question that, of course, Tavin knew that in his haste, he had, of course, found Magalie and walked right past her. And that is the first story of Tavin, and how Tavin began to learn what is wisdom and what is not, what is rash and what is not. And afterwards Tavin became a great man, a grand vizier, a hero, and did many great things. But the one thing he always did was when he saw a young man, a young girl, a child, he always told them the story I have just told you, to ensure that the story would live, the story would grow, and the story would spread here to these western lands on the edge of the world, across the hills of Germany and the mountains of Greece, through the islands of the Aegean and the peaks of Cappadocia. And of course it is always still told in those lands far to the south and east, where the stars are strange.